So, guys, this week, Raiders of the Lost Ark, not Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark, which really winds me up when some people call it that. And I think that that obviously comes from some of the other titles and things. But
I've got to change my notes now. I was one of my main points.
no, it used to wind me up something chronic. But anyway, I'll start if you don't mind. Raiders, and I'm going to call it that. Raiders wasn't a huge film for me growing up. And we spoke about this previously off podcast, that me and Ev are more familiar with another film within the series. And for me, it's Temple of Doom. So I was really, really familiar with that film. So when it came to Raiders, it was definitely one that I probably watched a little bit less. Ev, am I right in thinking that's the same for you?
Yeah. To be honest, I don't remember anything about Raiders of the Lost Ark when I was a kid. It was all Temple of Doom for me. And I don't think I watched it until I was probably in the teens. And even then, I didn't think it was good as Temple of Doom.
Oh,
I know
it's a controversial sort of quote, and I don't mind saying that. You know, I'm definitely of a similar experience to you. I'm probably younger. I was probably of a similar mindset to you as well. But Prague, what about you? You know, what did the film mean to you growing up? You know, how did you watch it and things?
It meant everything to me.
Yeah.
It completed you.
Growing up, it was Disney and Steven Spielberg for me. Those were the main movie experiences of my life. One of them's fallen by the wayside now, unfortunately, Disney. But Spielberg, I still love him. I still watch every film he puts out. Obviously, the last set of films he's done aren't as good as the older ones, but Indiana Jones was, I think Indiana Jones and E.T. when I was between the ages of like 7 and 8 and, you know, hitting puberty, those were the big films.
And you know, for me, again, I'm similar. Like Prague, I grew up, you know, definitely around Disney. Indiana Jones was a series that I absolutely loved, so I would always go to those type of films as well. But I was all as a gamer, which you two will know this, and some of the listeners won't. But as a gamer and a retro gamer, I used to love anything associated with Indiana Jones. There was a cracking point and click Temple of Doom game. There was a spin-off called Fate of Atlantis, which again I absolutely love, point and click game. And yeah, I would literally go out and seek out anything Indiana Jones related. But
I remember coming round your house.
Yeah.
And when we were supposed to be playing football, and I'd go into your room and you'd be playing the Indiana Jones game.
I had it on the Amiga, and it was one of those ones that had like 12 discs. So you'd go to a different scene and you'd be like, please insert disc 8. You're like, oh, Jesus, takes ages. But I spent hours and hours playing those games. And it's because of the whole Indiana Jones environment or universe. Let's call it that, because that's what they call, you know, sort of like the Marvel universe and things. But, you know, it was that adventure. It was the story behind the relics he was after, and it's one of the points that I've got actually, because there's quite a lot of controversy nowadays around museums having certain artifacts in their possession, and I wonder if Indiana Jones hadn't been made and someone sort of pitched it these days, whether they'd have to change it slightly. You know, it's that sort of like Tomb Raider type. Not the game.
I hadn't even thought about that when I was rewatching it. Didn't even enter my mind.
Yeah, it'd just be like National Treasure with Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, it's all got to be about the nation that you're from.
Yeah,
those are the only treasures or artifacts that you're allowed to go after.
Well, funnily enough, there's at least 2 lines in the film where they say this belongs in a museum, or this should be showcased in a museum. And when I was watching the film, and again, like Prog just said, I hadn't really thought about it previously until I literally sat down and started really. And I try not to analyze the films when I watch them, but it did get me thinking that, yeah, I wonder if it would be played slightly different these days.
I think in Raiders, in the Indiana Jones series, I think you can kind of bypass that because of the time it's set in.
Yeah, definitely. You know,
So
it's
if you had Indiana Jones in the present day, then maybe there'd be some discussion about, his moral compass, as it were. But in terms of antiquities, but I think if you're setting it where in the 30s where it's set, then
yeah, no, I 100% agree. But you know, going back to that sort of like whole environment or whole sort of universe of Indiana Jones, I just think it's exciting. It's all about sort of, you know, you hear a story, and you know Indiana Jones is there reading various books or various manuscripts. They're telling a story in it, and then he's the one who's going out and finding the artifacts and finding everything that links that. And this is where the Ark comes in, you know, and people are talking about the Ark as if it was just something from the Bible that didn't really exist. But in the film and the movie here, the story is based around actually finding something that is real.
yeah.
So, with regards to favorite aspect of the film, then, you know, why does, and I'll go to Prague first because I know he loves the film and the series so much.
Deeply love.
You know, what is it? What's your favorite aspect, particularly about Raiders, that you love?
Honestly, I couldn't pick one. I know I'm going to have to for this, but I think you boys are the same. But when you're rewatching the film, you have a pad and pen and you write down some notes when you're watching it. Normally, when we watch a film, try and keep the notes brief because we only got a couple of things to talk about. I wrote 2.5 pages. I was pausing the film because I wanted to write stuff down about. I'm not going to be able to get through all of it, but and for people listening or if they're watching, I write 2 sections. I write good and bad. I think I've written about 3 points that are bad, and I was trying to force myself to write stuff in the bad section just so I'd have something to say.
Bad. It's not long enough. There should be more Indiana Jones.
What I'll do, I'm going to briefly talk about 2 points, and then I'm going to pick my third and final one as the main one. So first of all, Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
I think his direction is flawless. And because I'm such a fan, I've obviously watched documentaries, I've read some books about him and the films that he's made. And I know this film in particular, Raiders of the Lost Ark, he did off the back of his first failure at the box office, which was 1941. Because he went away and thought that he could just, after he did Jaws and then Close Encounters, he thought that he could do anything and it would be a success. So he wrote a World War II comedy, 1941.
I really like that film.
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, it's not as good as his other films, but it's not bad. But it got critically panned, or not panned, but it wasn't well received, and it didn't do well at the box office. So he was coming off the back of a bit of a hiding, as it were. And of course, I think he was on holiday with George Lucas, and they were talking about next projects. And Steven Spielberg said he wanted to do James Bond, and George Lucas said, "I've got something better for you. I've got this character," and he was Indiana Jones, and he read the first screenplay. Blah 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 blah.
Technically, it was Indiana Smith.
Yes, yeah.
Because that's what Lucas had him down as, isn't it?
Yeah. Where I was going with all this was Steven Spielberg says that for this film, he never prepared as much, not only because he wanted to make the best film possible, but because he was coming off the back of a failure, as it were. And he also was emotionally involved because he was doing a film with his friend, George Lucas, and he didn't want to let him down. And you can see that in the film. It's incredibly tight. There's no baggy parts. There's nothing that you could take out. In fact, there's a few things that should be put in. In particular, I'll say, how does Indy survive on the submarine? Yeah? But at that point, you don't really care. You're totally immersed in the adventure. So that's my take on Steven Spielberg. The second one, John Williams. Iconic score. Yeah. When you hear that score, you think Indiana Jones. Yeah. I don't need to go too much into John Williams. Everyone knows who John Williams is. But my third final point, the main point, is the Indiana Jones character. He is, and I've seen loads of polls, and they have been, normally number one. Indiana Jones is the most iconic movie character ever. And I think if you were to say, I know Harrison Ford has Han Solo as well. No, he's been quite fortunate with his film roles, I know, during the 70s and 80s. Good for him, obviously, because he's a really good actor. But Indiana Jones, I don't think anything comes close to Indiana Jones. I mean, you could argue a superhero, but they don't have the rough edges.
Yeah. And superheroes normally come from a comic, so they've got they've got a following anyway. And I 100% agree with you. If you take a film character or a character who has been predominantly made for film, yeah, he is iconic. He's iconic as well because of visually how he looks. It's the fedora, it's the whip, it's the
jacket.
It's all of that just adds to it. And and I do wonder at times whether if anyone else could have played him, and whether we get into that a little bit later, I don't know. But
well, you can talk about it now. I know. I think it's been talked about a lot, written about a lot, that Tom Selleck was supposed to have played Indiana Jones, but he couldn't do it because he was contracted to Magnum. Is that right?
I'm not sure. I haven't heard that one. I can't imagine Indiana Jones with a moustache.
Well, there's a screen test of Tom Selleck as Indiana Jones, and he's, Tom Selleck is a fine actor. The screen test is okay, but Harrison Ford, there's something about Harrison Ford. He's got a lot of charm when he wants to be charming, but he's also, I wouldn't call it rough. I would say he's dogged.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a great scene where he's on the boat with Marion, the pirate boat, and he's got all these scars and bruises and cuts from what he's just been through with basically being dragged along a road by a military van, and having to try and get the Ark back. And I don't know whether anyone else could have played that scene the way he plays it. There's a vulnerability to him at that moment.
And he ad-libs a line in that as well, doesn't he?
Which line is it?
The line about, oh my God.
It's not the years, it's the mileage.
That's the one, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you made that up.
Yeah. So, yeah. My favorite. Go on, sorry, Ev.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that there's a certain arrogance to it as well, which I think you wouldn't find with anyone else.
But I do agree with you in part, but I think there's a key line after he has that fight with the German guy at the plane, and the plane blows up, and Salah finds them, and they're still alive. And he says, I'm going after the Ark. And he tells Salah and Marion to get to find some transport for the Ark, whatever. And Salah says, how are you going to do it? And Indy says, I don't know, I'm making this up as I go along. I think in that moment, you understand that as the character, he's doing whatever he can, whatever he needs to do for the good. I don't want to say for the good of the world, but obviously putting the Ark in the Nazis' hand isn't the best outcome, is it?
Ev, what about you? What about your favourite aspect of?
Sorry, Ev, I went on a bit there.
I know. What he said. No, I think it's an old-fashioned adventure film, and there's not much filler involved. I think even when you're going from scene to scene, and it's all the little things that you never get to see in films anymore, like when he's flying from country to country, and you've got the map and the red line going across, and little things like that.
It's not afraid to be an adventure film, is it?
No,
and for me, that's important.
It's not afraid to be a B movie.
Yeah, potentially.
The roots of the film are George Lucas's fascination with B movies of the 30s that he used to go and watch when he was younger.
I'm going to touch on a couple of my bits, and they've already sort of been touched on anyway. I love the score. I love the sound of the film. I love the fact that the Indiana Jones theme tune, let's call it that, whenever Indy is winning or something happens, it kicks in. And it's dun, 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 and I think it's just brilliant. There's the bit where he, Prog's already mentioned it, right? He's fought the German on the plane, or around the plane, who is Pat Roach, and everyone knows Pat Roach being a Newcastle lad.
No, he's from Bristol.
No, I know, but he's in Alvida St. Pet is what I meant.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I should have explained that. Who, funnily enough, dies twice in the film. He has two roles. Do you know this?
What's the second one?
So he is the giant Sherpa in the bar in Nepal. So there's another actor who dies twice in the film, and that is American-British actor. Don't ask me his name.
Vic Tablian.
That's the one. He is the guy at the very beginning who gets shot. He doesn't get shot. He gets killed with all the darts in his back. But he was the one who was going to shoot Indy. And he's also the guy with the monkey.
Right.
But anyway, going back to what I was saying, the score, I absolutely love it because it's the one scene that epitomizes it all for me. Is Indy has just jumped on a horse as his mode of transport to catch up with the Ark. And as he's riding away, all the whatever country he's in, I can't even remember, all the people around him, all the Egyptians going, "Way!" and the music kicks in, and it's just uplifting, it's warming, it's everything I want in a film. That feel good factor for that moment of him going after everything.
Do you reckon the Egyptians knew what he was doing? Or do you reckon Salah started cheering and they were like, oh, well, Salah's cheering, we may as well cheer?
Well, at one point, I'm pretty sure they started like having a go at him because he just stole a horse. And then they're like, yeah, whatever, we. But also, the really funny thing in all of that is he gets on the horse and he rides past two vehicles. There's a car and a truck, and you think, maybe a horse can go more, across desert. I don't know. Who knows?
It's a treacherous landscape, I would say, wouldn't it? Those roads weren't tarmacked very well.
Maybe the horse knows better. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then the second point for me was the use of light and dark. And I think it's Spielberg. He does these sort of things very well. And if you don't mind, I'll go into my favorite scene straight after I've done this one. But when you first get introduced to Indiana Jones, he has just whipped the gun away from the guy. He steps out of the shadows into the light. And it's your first introduction to the character. And I just think it's iconic.
Yep.
That entire sequence, from the moment the film starts to the point where he's on the plane, and he's flying away with the snake in his thing. That, and I'm cheating here because that's not really one scene, but that entire sequence is my favorite scene or sequence of the film. I think it's brilliant. It's, for me, it's up there as one of the best openings to a film that you can get. You meet a character, you think, oh, wait a minute, who's this guy? He's an adventurer. He's ballsy. He's really determined to get the prize at the end of it, and then it goes into a slightly comedy aspect, but at the same time he is in peril, and then it ends with the scene which sets up another scene further on with him with the snake.
Yeah,
I just think it's brilliant. I don't know if you can get a better opening that is enjoyable and just gets your heart going. Don't get me wrong, there's probably scenes out there which are better written from a dialogue point of view, but just everything about the way that it's shot comes from, like I was saying, my favorite aspect of Light into Dark.
well, you get everything in that opening that you want from an action adventure film.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's, as Evan pointed to, as when he was saying about his favorite aspect of the film, he's talking about, little details and touches. You look at what, before they go into the ruins, Indy fills up a bag with sand. And if you're watching the film first time, you either wouldn't notice that, or you would think, why is he filling it up with sand? And of course, transpires and I took it that he understood what he was going to find inside the ruins, and that's why he filled the bag up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that opening sequence is amazing. I mean, because there's something that I didn't realize when I was younger, but of course, when you watch it as an adult, you pick up on different things. And I love the bit where Indy is going to exchange the sand for the statue, or vice versa, sorry. And he's doing this. He's feeling his face and he's going like this. And it cuts to Alfred Molina's character, and he's copying Indy because he's nervous.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know if anyone else would have done that, but Steven Spielberg. Like, I've not read the screenplay for Raiders of the Lost Ark. I'd like to know if something like that was in the screenplay or if it was added later. Because obviously going off this point, but I know the Heil Hitler salute by the monkey was ad-libbed. They added that as they were filming. Yeah. But I'd like to know if Alfred Molina doing that was added at the time.
Yeah, and it's little touches like that they add humor, but it's not in your face humor. It's that something that'll just make you a little smile on your face. And going to Alfred Molina, I do think he considering that's his first ever credited role, I think he does quite well as that character.
Well, you remember him, don't you?
Yeah, I didn't realize about that scene where he's doing the hands, and just before he puts the bag of sand on. The kids' film Boss Baby do a good trick on that as well. And it's literally almost like for like in the scene. I didn't realize it was a copy until watching the film this week. But going back to the monkey, I can't believe they give the monkey such love and affection. He was a right traitorous bastard, wasn't he? He sold them out.
But if they hadn't kept the monkey, Indy would have died from poisoning.
Good. Silly monkey. What a traitor.
Ev, what's your favourite scene, buddy?
I think for me it's the same as you. The opening, really. Just yeah. I mean, you could pick a number of other ones, like when go through anything, the map scene in the snake pit. When he's got the headpiece, the staff and the headpiece, and then going through the snake pit and whatever. But yeah, the opening I think is just really, really, really good.
I agree with what Andrew said. It might be the greatest opening to a film.
But there's certain scenes I won't add. They're not really favourites. It's just little things I've picked up on, just watching it now with like fresh eyes. And into like when Marion's having the drinking competition, her opponent looks really like Chubby Brown. I don't know. It's just you think about it, it's like, hold on, that's right, Chubby Brown. And then going on a little bit from that is when Indiana Jones is trying to apologize to Marion about something that he's done, which you never really know. But then she was saying, "Oh, I was young. I was a child. I was in love," and it's like,
I know the background to this.
yeah. Oh, go on.
So because it's in the novelization of the film, it goes into a bit more detail. Marion is 15, Indy is 25, and they have a relationship, and that is why her father is not a happy chappy about it.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, because that was in one of the original screenplays, and I think there might be a recording of Spielberg and Lucas having a writers' meeting, and they're talking about the Indiana Jones character and the relationship with Marion, and they're talking about whether to include the ages. And of course, I think it's better that they've taken the age out because it makes the. I think this adds to while. I think for some people it can add to the character, but for other people it can detract from the Indiana Jones character.
It's funny, right? Because when I read that, I was just like, "Ooh, it's a bit dodgy." And again, you got to remember this is 1930s, but that's no excuse. And I was just thinking, even if they just make her 2 years older, she's 17, he's 25, 27. It's just a little bit more acceptable, I think.
And I think that's why, in terms of the film, them not revealing the ages of either of them, it's open to interpretation. I think it's a lot better looking back on it.
Yeah, I think so.
But also, she's when they're going through Cairo before the gunshot and the sword scene. She's not very inconspicuous, is she? She's got like. She's not covering her hair. She's got bright red clothes on. Literally, it's just like, "Hello, take me. I'm here. Yeah. Hello."
You could say bloody foreigners, couldn't you? She's a foreigner.
But surely, where did she get those clothes from? Because surely she would have had to have bought them either in Nepal or in Cairo. And
I like to believe that she had a one bedroom shack outside the bar that she kept, and that's where she had a wardrobe full of clothes. Because otherwise, it would have all been burnt in the fire. Unless Salah gave us some clothes.
Yeah. Yeah, you just happen to have a tape measure, some needles, and some scissors.
Salah's probably got about 20 wives, I reckon.
Yeah, that's true. He could have. Yeah. The other thing is, as well, this could have been a deleted scene where you see Indy and Marion arriving in Cairo, and she's like, "Look, Indy, I got to go to the shop. I got to get a dress or something. I got nothing else to wear."
They got a pre-market or something?
So you see Indy following Marion around. He's carrying the bags.
Yeah.
But you don't get to see that, unfortunately.
Muttering under his breath, we've been at this
every chance
before.
he gets, he's sitting down in the shop.
What do you think of this? Yeah, great. Can we go now? Yeah.
Also, right, going back to the age difference, and I'm sort of glad they did take that out, because otherwise it would have changed the whole student-teacher relationship that that Indy potentially would have had at the beginning with that girl that has "Love You" on her eyelids.
Oh,
yeah. But I think in terms of Indy and Marion, I think he was technically supposed to still be a student, even though he was a lot older. Because wasn't he still being taught by Marion's father?
Possibly, unsure.
Yeah, I don't know.
Prog, what's your favourite scene?
Oh, but I could pick from so many. I mean, you think about this. I mean, this film is iconic scene after iconic scene, isn't it? I mean, we've already spoken about the punch up at the plane, and immediately after, that's followed by the chase, Indy on a horse, and the Nazis with the Ark on their army vehicles. I'm going to go for that. I'm going to go for the chase. I thought before I watched it, I thought I was going to pick something else. I thought I was going to pick one of the more intimate scenes or slow scenes, because I really love in almost every film you get what's called the exposition dump, and that's where everything is given to the audience. Right? It's the audience that told the plot, who the goodie, who the baddie is, who the good guy is, blah blah blah. It's the setup for what's going to happen through the film. And I think in Raiders of the Lost Ark, the exposition dump is done better than almost every other film. And it's where let me just get this right now. It's where Indy meets with the army intelligence.
Right, yeah, okay.
And they talk about the Nazis' communications and the possibility of them going after the Ark. So actually, yeah, I'm going to pick that scene instead, because exposition dumps are difficult. When you trying to write screenplays or you've read screenplays, you get familiar with the mechanics of them. The exposition dump can sometimes be really difficult to make it seem like it's not an exposition dump. And while I knew it was happening, and I know it happens every single time in a film, this does it in a way that's really, if not entertaining, it's at least really interesting.
Yeah, and I think they do it really well in the sense of they start talking about a topic which army intelligence believe that it's all hocus pocus because it's something from the Bible, but all of a sudden he's putting substance to it as well, and and talking about his former professor and being the font of all knowledge with him.
Well, the best thing they did in that scene was write it in a way where the army intelligence, they've got sort of bits and pieces. They can't connect the dots, and one of the guys actually says, when India's told them, and obviously Brody as well, Marcus, between them, they've sort of given army intelligence the rest of the information. And one of the guys says, we've obviously come to the right people.
I didn't realize before watching the film yesterday, sorry, not yesterday, a couple of days ago, that the plot of Last Crusade borrows heavily from this film. And if you think about comparing the two, they're both, whereas he had Belloc in the first film, he's got Donovan in Last Crusade. So they're fighting amongst each other to get a religious artifact. They have sort of the same types of scenes in terms of the chases with the army vehicles. You
know why that is, don't you?
Well, they ran out of ideas.
No, they went back to the tried and trusted formula because Temple of Doom wasn't as good.
Yeah, Temple of Doom is different.
Temple of Doom is brilliant.
No, I do like Temple of Doom.
And in this film, similar with Temple of Doom, we get references to Star Wars as well. So in this one, there's a hieroglyphic image of R2-D2 and C-3PO. And then in Temple of Doom, we get Bar Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
So moving on to the next topic, is there anything you would particularly change ever about the film?
Yeah, well, that bit about the backstory between him and Marion, I think it's. I'm glad they didn't put it in terms of the age gap, because you wouldn't feel any sort of empathy with the main character at all. But then I don't know, I probably wouldn't even mention a backstory at all, or
just not have her referencing that she was a child.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And that's similar for me. I was thinking of this. There's probably 2 or 3 little nitpicky little things that I've got. That is one of them. I just think you can have them in a relationship. Maybe he's upset her father got upset about it or didn't want them to be together in the first place. And there's your story. I spoke earlier about whether if the film was made today, would you still have this sort of like Tomb Raider-y stealing artifacts sort of storyline? But I think Prog makes a really good point that it's based in the 1930s. That happened. You can't get away from that. And that's it's okay to tell that story. And then the only other thing would be in the Nepal bar scene, there's one guy who is clearly wearing makeup to make him look Asian. He's obviously he's obviously a Western actor.
Right.
I just think you probably could have got someone Asian looking, Nepalese looking to play that character. The problem they had, most of this was shot in the UK. So it's finding a character that fits the bill, isn't it? So,
I think that it goes without saying, if you were going to reshoot that now, there'd be no question that they wouldn't do that.
Yeah, it's but again, this you got to think about when it was filmed. You got to think about what was sort of standard practice. Whether you agree with it or not, it happened. So there's very, very little that I would change about the film. Prog?
There's one thing that I could think of, and again, it's a nitpick, and it's when Indy is upset about Marion thinking that she's died in that van explosion, and the only comfort Salah can give him is life goes on. And I would make him a little bit more. I wouldn't have him as blasé as that. That's the only thing I would do.
I think who plays him? Jonathan
Rhys Davies.
John Rhys Davies. Sorry, yeah. I think he's brilliant. He's whenever people say about Raiders of the Lost Ark, he is the one character I always think of. Beyond Indiana Jones. I think he plays him really well.
He doesn't do a very good Egyptian accent though, does he?
Well, I'm still trying to work out whether he is British stationed in Cairo or whether and he's picked up a little bit of the accent, or whether he has a crap Egyptian accent to begin with.
I think one thing I like in films is if you're going to have a character like that played by an actor like that, then don't explain it. Just don't even reference it. Because it's up to the viewer's imagination. What do you think happened in that instance? And like you said, and maybe he's just a British guy stationed there originally. He's lived there now when he happens to be, in the excavation business, and
he now has 15 kids by 7 different wives. Because that's the right sort of thing.
I do think you're pushing the stereotype there as well. But
before we go on to the last topic, there's one thing I want to just quickly touch on. And I think, and Prog has mentioned it already, and Evan has, Raiders and Last Crusade are very similar. They totally took a curveball, I think, with Temple of Doom. I think it's a very, very different looking film. I think Raiders at times can be violent. I looked this up, right? So 64 people get killed in the film, 11 of them by Indy. It's quite a decent kill rate.
Needs to up his numbers.
Yeah,
he's better than Arnold Schwarzenegger in Terminator 2.
And also, it's scary at the end. I remember watching that as a kid. Those final scenes, they were scary, and you're like, oh, Jesus Christ, what's all those ghosts coming out? And as a kid, you don't really understand that. And it's Steven Spielberg not dumbed it down, wrong word to use, but it was...
Scaled it back.
It was on course for an R rating in the US, and the only way because of the face melting...
Shout out to the effects as well. They hold up.
The only way they got around that was having that sort of flames in front of it, so it didn't look as graphic as it did. And that final scene is really well shot, and it's quite accurate as well. A lot of the
What, it happened?
no, the ritual itself, a lot of it is written up within Exodus.
Oh, right, yeah. Okay,
So
yeah.
the way that the ark looks, the way that the high priest is dressed, and I deliver some of the ceremony. Don't quote me on this. I'm not religious, but researching it, a lot of it is, quite accurate.
It's based in stories that have been told.
Yeah, exactly. And then other final point for me is the final scene, right?
Yeah.
In the big warehouse. And it's a bit of a take on Citizen Kane, because there's a similar scene in Citizen Kane with a wide shot of a really big warehouse, right? Also, don't write top secret on a box. It's just tempting me to open the box. I see top secret written on something. I want to know what's in there.
Yeah, but it's written on all the boxes.
I'd be like a kid in a candy shop there. I'd be like, oh my
Yeah,
God, what's
the
in
thing
here?
is, and they wouldn't give you access.
With my crowbar ready to go. Come on.
Yeah, you'd get a job with the FBI or something, and they'd be like, "Have you heard about this warehouse they got down in Area 51? It's got all these boxes with top secret. I wonder what's in them." I quite like that ending though, where they just put it in a box and they just put it in amongst other boxes, and it's like, who is going to find that?
Yeah, no, it's very.
They did in the Crystal Skull.
Yeah,
I think
let's say about that from a bit.
Best not to include that within this series. What they should have done is made Fate of the Atlantis, but different story. Different day. So, moving on to the final topic then. Would you recommend it? I'm pretty sure I know Prog's answer. Big fat yes.
100% yes. I'm going to go down in history as saying this: the greatest action adventure film ever.
I thought my takes were hot. That's for the Spaceballs on. Oh my God.
That's a hill I'm willing to die on.
Hill, that's bloody Everest.
Go on, give me a better one then.
Yeah. For me, right, it's up there. It's probably, and I'd forgotten this before I rewatched the film. I'd forgotten how much I loved it, forgotten how much of an adventure you have with the film, and that just pure enjoyment for it. I think it stands up today. The special effects, we've already mentioned it, stand up. There's very little you can nitpick with it, and I think anyone from, I would say, over the age of 9 or 10, I would recommend to watch that.
Yeah, I think if you're gonna have kids watching it around 9 or 10, then I would advise to watch it with them, because some of the content is, for an older viewer, as we've already discussed, the violence of the ending. But yeah, I'd recommend it to anyone. I can't think of. I think even someone who wasn't a fan of the genre, of the actors, of the directors, I'd find it difficult for them to say, not that they love the film, but that they didn't find something in the film that was enjoyable.
Do you know what, right? I would be really envious of someone who had never seen that film and then has to go and watch it. Because, and can you imagine going to the cinema to watch that for the first time? Imagine the experience you'd have.
I'm quite jealous of people who grew up at that time being able to go and, it's like, oh, you're going to go watch the new Steven Spielberg film, this Raiders of the Lost Ark? Yeah, I might go and watch that. They go and watch it and it just blows their mind.
I know. Ev, so we didn't get your answer. Was you as a recommend or not?
I would, but I'd probably recommend Temple of Doom more.
He's still plugging it.
Well, I don't know.
Couple of flying V's coming your way, but
truth hurts. That's what it is.
So before we wrap up, right? Final point from me. Do you know that Steven Spielberg had someone else in mind to play Salah? I should have mentioned it. Yeah,
go on.
Steven Spielberg wanted Danny DeVito to play Salah.
That would have been tremendous.
But he was too busy with Taxi.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm glad we had John Rhys Davies. So.
Yeah. Anyway, let's wrap up there. Guys, thanks very much. Hopefully everyone's enjoyed this. I say it all the time. Share, like, subscribe. I don't know what you do on these various channels that we're part of, but do what you need to do and promote us. Right. Thank you all. Ta-ra.